oh man, it's tough. You go out there and you're giving your heart out every night. I mean, you do. You try really hard to play good shows and, you know, play somewhat in time with the music, and, you know, you hope you're rocking, but, you know, it's just like anything, you know, it's just music.
Well, we'd like to make an open challenge to Siegfried and Roy tonight, saying, we've got a better show than you.
To top it all off, the Pumpkins opted to spend the summer of '94 headlining the granddaddy of alternative rock tours, Lollapalooza. But once again, they were the outsiders.
I think when you're on a bill with a lot of other bands, it's almost kind of lowest common denominator, you know. It's almost like in a review, you know. It's just like, here we are, the newest hit makers, and then here we are, the newest hit maker, you know. It's like, so you're kind of forced in a position of responding in like kind. And that was part of what was difficult in Lollapalooza, is we were insisting on being the Smashing Pumpkins, which is hardly bowing to that lowest common denominator element. And that caused a lot of problems.
Conflicts and problems with other bands like the Breeders and their lead singer, Kim Deal, left Billy with mixed feelings about the tour.
With me, it's always a love-hate thing, so I love it just as much as I hate it. I mean, you know, I can talk about how much I hated Lollapalooza till I'm blue in the face, but you didn't see me drop off the tour either.
Billy, we know what you did on your summer vacation, headlined Lollapalooza, that you just finished a couple days ago, right?
Yes, no more.
No more. Any rest for the weary?
Now I'm going to start writing right away, and we plan on doing our double CD concept album, so I'm very busy. I guess you could call it a concept album in the sense that it tries to encompass a lot of aspects of life, but it's not conceptual in the sense of like trying to tell a story like The Wall was, or Sgt. Pepper or something. It's not conceptual in that it has an overriding theme and everything applies to the theme. There was no one theme that seemed to encompass that except just life in general.
He's got some name for it, something like the Phoenix meets the Dwarf.
How about I just write it down for you? Because every time I say it, everyone gets that kind of puzzled look that they get when someone pinches them on the butt.
Basketball Land, Baseball City, I think is one of the titles we're kicking around.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. It's really representative of the kind of the theme of the record.
It's just another one of those pretentious Pumpkin album titles. So it's just continuing the long line of pretension.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness finds Corgan mining new lyrical territory and penning a prolific 40 new songs.
A lot of times when I'm first writing a song, I'm really not thinking about anything. There's no thought, like I don't think, gee, I want to write a song about my terribly twisted childhood, or, you know, like I think people think I think like that. I think I sit down and I just want to write a good piece of music, and oftentimes the music that I write seems to dictate, at least in my own mind, the emotional scope.
I think lyrically it's probably the strongest record we've ever done. I mean, some of the lyrics that Billy's written on this record have just blown me away. I mean, made me want to weep.
Boredom's in the bathroom, shaking out the loose tea. Sally's in the stirrups, claiming her own destiny.
On the first album, I felt that the subject matter was extremely personal. I didn't care if anybody got it. On the second album, I wanted to express what I wanted to express personally, but it was also with a keen eye to communicate. Whereas like this one, I think the subject matter is a little more worldly.
The world is a vampire.
It's Corrigan's subject matter, drawn from his own life experiences, that's often been scrutinized by rock critics.
Most of the bad reviews that the Pumpkins have ever got always harken back to like my lack of so-called integrity. It's always a question of where I'm coming from. And those people don't understand my life. I just try to remember that for every journalist that says that the Smashing Pumpkins are a negligible, unimportant band, you know, there's 4 million plus kids in the world who love our records and tell me at every opportunity that they do. I mean this in all sincerity. I really wrote this record not really giving two shits about what anyone was really going to think about it. The constant thing was, does it rock me? Does it rock the band? because I just don't care. I just don't care. Just do whatever I want to do.
This will be the last rock show we'll be playing for about 7 or 8 months, so wish us luck. Thank you. We'll be playing for about 7 or 8 months, so wish us luck. Thank you for coming.
It's way too self-conscious at first. It's like, okay, we're going to record an album now. Where do I start? You know, because it's like trying to climb a mountain. You have the weight of permanence hanging over your head. You know, when you're on stage, right, you're going, well, you know, if I blow this note or I blow this chord, I mean, it's gone. You know, on an album, it's there to be repeated digitally till the end of time.
It's that perfectionism that's fueled rumors that Billy played most of the guitar parts on the first 2 Pumpkins albums.
It's very hard for me to talk about how the band works in specific, because any time that I've ever talked about it, it just gets misunderstood, and I end up looking like a Svengali. The mechanics of the music is one thing, but the band, the heart and soul of the band is another. And what it lacks in one sense, it makes up for in others, and what it, you know what I mean? Somehow there's a weird balance.
People generally think that he does it all, but the 3 other personalities in the band definitely shape the music for the better or for the worse.
On Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, the Pumpkins parted ways with longtime producer Butch Vig, opting for a new direction and producer, techno dance whiz Flood, whose credits include U2's Achtung Baby and 9 Inch Nails' The Downward Spiral.
Billy approached me because he liked certain things that I'd done in the past that had broken people's accepted opinions of those particular bands, and he wanted to do exactly that for this band.
Well, he's English, and I don't even want to talk about it. No, he's a great guy.
Flood is very different than Butch. He tends to go for the emotional content of a song, which is really what I try and go for. Where Butch was a little bit more of a perfectionist. Butch wanted flawless performance. Flood wants convincing emotion.
Okay, well let's do that, because it sounds a bit, it's not much guts to it at the moment.
Right.
He's just coming at it from every other angle. And he really embodies the sense of excitement about making records that I really feel. He's got that childlike, you know, like we talk about, you know, it's like how kids talk about baseball players, that's how we talk about albums.
Hey, Flood, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can I just do this one thing real quick?
Okay.
I just want to see if it works, and if it does, then I'll just know it. It'll only take a minute. Everybody knows how to play the riffs, so I'll just play it.
With Flood on board, the Pumpkins were prepared to break old habits, deciding to record first in a rehearsal space and then in a studio.
The way we worked in the past is complete, literally assembly line. It's like do the drums, do the bass, do the guitar, do the vocals, do the guitar, do the guitars, do the solos, do the solos. It's more time effective that way, but it's very...
If you spend a little bit more time on getting the sounds exactly right, then everybody can play it as one, and you might get a greater gain because everybody's playing at the same time. How is it in the room for everybody playing like that?
Crazy.
Crazy good?
It actually sounds pretty good, I think, today.
Working in the rehearsal space was just like going to rehearsal, only it ended up on tape, you know?
At this stage, one would hope that maybe half of what we do here ends up on the record. There's no reason at all why we shouldn't be able to utilise this for the end product.
I think it was really productive, and I hope that everyone agrees with me, because I'd like to do more of that in the future.
Emptiness is loneliness, and loneliness is cleanliness, and cleanliness is godliness, and God is empty, just like...
When you hear the new record, it's like, you know, it's like hitting the reset button on a love affair. It's like if you spend a lot of time with somebody you love, you tend to get you know, short-sighted, and you kind of look past what initially attracted you to them, and then, you know, one day they'll do something and you'll say, oh, that's it, you know, that's why. So it's good. Every record, I think, is like a rebirth for us.
Given their rocky history, recording a 28-track double album might have spelled disaster for the Pumpkins. But the band pulled together once again, further strengthening their ties to each other.
Those ties are there whether you like it or not. There's nothing you can do. You can hate them, you know, as much, but, you know, the next second you're going to turn around and feel completely different about it.
This is by far the strongest the band has ever been on a completely internal level. It's not even a get-along level, because we've always gotten along pretty well. But there's a different strength in it. Familial is the only word that I could use, really.
These are the people I spend 90% of my time with, so of course we're like brothers and sisters.
You know, all their idiosyncrasies, you have to work, you have to eat with them. And yeah, I suppose it is a family without being like too cheesy about it.
Do the rubber band, do the rubber band, do the rubber band. Take it, rubber man.
While the four are bound by their friendship and ambition, the future of the Smashing Pumpkins is as unpredictable as its members.
My fear is that, you know, Jimmy Chamberlin plays the hits of the Smashing Pumpkins, featuring, like, you know, I don't know who we would have on lead, like the guy from Radiohead on lead vocals, you know.
I don't know, the other guys are starting to talk about how they feel old and they can't rock anymore.
I would hope we mature gracefully, but right now I don't really care, because thinking about the future and thinking about the past is really a way of avoiding the present. And all I know is that the present right now is very good. I'm very lucky, we're very lucky, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
With Smashing Pumpkins, we spent a lot of time with them, so we got two parts to show you. They'll perform live tonight on the award show. They returned to the road last week, a month and a half after their tour was tragically interrupted by the heroin overdose death of keyboardist Jonathan Melvoin. That incident led to the firing of their drummer, Jimmy Chamberlin, who was arrested for heroin possession at the scene of Melvoin's death. I caught up with the three remaining Pumpkins a couple of weeks ago, and they held nothing back in exploding the myth of rock's romance with drugs and revealing the frustrations of running a band with junkies in it. We began with Chamberlin's own drug history, which had sent him into rehab before.
You had faced the question of Jimmy's drug addiction in the past. As you began the tour, though, it was your impression, just for the record, that he was no longer using drugs of any kind.
Who?
Not drugs of any kind, but hard drugs.
Heroin.
Right. Heroin, cocaine.
I spoke to Jimmy Chamberlin and Billy Corgan at the beginning of their summer tour in Indiana. There, Jimmy talked openly about drugs as if they were part of his distant past.
Getting, you know, flown around the world, you know, living in an unreality that becomes reality, where you can do anything you want to do and somebody will pay for it. It gives you, you know, it puts you in a mindset that's very dangerous and very self-destructive.
Were you aware at that time that he was still battling drug use, or that it was recreational?
We were really under the impression that he was having these kind of little weekend warrior blowouts, but that basically it was under control, and we were being made to believe that we were being told the truth at every step of the way, which we later found out wasn't true at all.
It's always a tragedy when that happens, because it's not necessarily always the artist's fault.
That's more both drug addict excuses. I'm sorry, but that's just more excuses. The fact of the matter is you're a human being. You have responsibilities, not only to yourself, but to others.
What do you got?
The European leg of the Infinite Sadness tour was plagued by problems centering around Jonathan Melvoin and Jimmy Chamberlin last spring. The band offered to stop their tour so Jimmy could seek treatment, but he insisted he didn't need it. Surprisingly, the Pumpkins managed to keep the drug situation private, despite the severity of the problems they were having.
There were 2 overdoses. prior to this particular overdose.
By Jimmy or Jonathan?
The first one involved Jimmy, and the second